Yes, today we have a man in the hot seat, and I'm absolutely delighted to welcome the creator of the Mindful Man movement and the podcast From Caving It to Crushing It, Durrani. Absolutely thrilled to have you with us here today, Drew. Now, before we get into our topic of today, a very important topic, can you maybe share a little bit about who you are, what you do, and why you do it?
Absolutely. My name is Drew Durrani. I am the founder and owner of Profit Compassion and the leader of the Mindful Man movement. Why I do what I do is I went through four faith-shaking life events in a 9-month period between April of 18 and January of 19. It was divorce, fired from my job. My son had suicidal ideations, and then my dad unexpectedly got sick and passed away.
My
9 months
goodness.
in. Yeah, so it hit me hard and caused me to reevaluate my life, do a lot of self-awareness, self-reflection. And I decided to write a book. Always wanted to and never had content. Now I had the content, but I didn't want to keep it to myself. I wanted to spread the message to help other men like myself. So I started telling my story out loud to anybody who would listen. And as I did, I started to heal from within. And then it hit me. I had that epiphany that my role in life, my purpose, my why is to get men to open up and start sharing their story, harnessing their emotions, not suppressing them, so they can heal themselves from within, and we can start being around as long as women on this earth, because we're dying a lot younger and we're
That's
causing.
true. But isn't that, I mean, I always find it fascinating how something, terrible, and then there you had four,
Yeah,
really, really big events, which are enough to knock most people off their balance, that you
right.
actually found in there your fuel and your mission, and that you
Hmm.
decided to do something about it, and
Yeah.
as an almost byproduct, healed yourself.
Yep.
So I think that's the most right. Okay, so just situate us a bit. I know you are the father of 3 children, if I remember well.
Yes.
Yes,
Yep. 2 boys and a girl.
boys and a
Absolutely.
girl. And
Yep.
you're based where, Drew?
I'm in northern New Jersey in the U.S., United
Northern New
States.
Jersey in the US. And
Yep.
it's lovely because we came across each other by a joint group about helping authors and podcasters, right?
Absolutely. And I'm going to give direct credit to Anka Herman because she invited you onto that group, and I'm a co-founder of that group with her. So
Exactly. And Anka will actually be for the third time our episode next week. And she is actually
yay.
the midwife of this entire podcast. So
Yeah,
thank you for that, Drew. Thank you also for
absolutely.
sharing with a lot of vulnerability as
Oh,
well.
sure. Yeah.
And I mean, okay, this public is
Mhm.
predominantly women, I would
Right.
say.
Hmm.
However, I am very happy to have had a few men on the show, and I never say
Yes.
no to a man based on his gender. It's just
Right.
what topics are they talking
Of
about?
course. Of
And I
course.
mean, if we want this to be a thriving planet,
Hmm.
we
Hmm.
both need to understand each other. My heart does go out a little bit to men as well, because in our desire to reestablish balance, let's say, it's quite hard for men to actually define, well, where is their place in society now
Sure.
that women are supposedly better at everything and this and that. And it is a very important topic when we
Mhm.
talk about, so we're
Yeah.
talking about that the topic is overcoming self-sabotage from within,
Right.
right?
Absolutely.
And
Hmm.
Drew is approaching it from, as he calls himself, a reformed people pleaser. Now, before speaking with
Oh,
you, I would say that I mostly saw that as a feminine
mhm.
trait, right? That
Okay.
women always tend
Hmm.
to put everybody before them. They always want to make
Hmm.
everybody happy. They want
Hmm.
harmony in the family. So even if it's
Hmm.
going against something that they feel or
Right.
wanted, etc., they will, for the sake of harmony, please others before pleasing themselves.
Absolutely.
Whereas more and more we are talking about the fact that, depending on age as well, but if I'm
Mhm.
saying, this is a 50 plus audience, often men are brought up, men don't cry, men are strong, men
Mhm.
lead, they have to be always, deciding things, etc. And
Right.
it's often at their own detriment, right? That, why shouldn't little boys cry? What do they then do with those emotions? What do they then
Absolutely.
learn about how to be a person? So you've basically launched onto this whole mission, right?
Yeah.
And you coach people as well, Drew?
I do. I absolutely do. On their mindset and embodiment. If you're going to talk the talk, you've got to walk the walk. Absolutely.
Right. So how do you go about this? And I mean, what can you share with us today? So I would say on twofold. One is as women understanding men. And secondly is, I mean, your tips. I mean, I saw some of the content that you share. It's
Yeah.
also very much applicable to women.
Hmm.
Maybe it's in a different degree for men because they first have to allow themselves maybe to be aware of what they're doing
Right.
and to own it.
Right.
But still, it is overcoming self-sabotage. Let's define self-sabotage. How do you, Drew, define self-sabotage?
The self-sabotage to me is having unconscious thoughts, unconscious words, and unconscious behaviors that get in our own way. We have a goal, and because of whatever reason, whether it's self-limiting beliefs or what we've been taught, we do things to get in our own way, self-destructive behavior, and we take us off course on that direction towards reaching our goals. And then we wonder why we don't accomplish certain things. And it's in essence a choice. It's an
Yeah.
unconscious choice, and most of the time we're not have really taken advantage of the 5% conscious brain activity we have. 95% of our brain activity is unconscious. There's 5% that we're aware of, and why not be intentional and purposeful for what we do in order to allow ourselves to trust the process and stop putting pressure on ourselves.
Right. And I mean, indeed, as you say, it's self-sabotage. So it's not
Mm-hmm.
somebody else who's,
Mm-mm.
messing
No.
up the show for us. This is something that we're doing ourselves because of beliefs or patterns. That's what I hear you saying, that
Yeah.
we probably picked up at a much younger age, and which were not ours. Because, you're talking about being a people pleaser.
Right.
So that by definition is something that we're basing ourselves on the outside. We think, oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so this person wants that. So that's not actually what I want, but okay, I'll
Right.
please you. I'll please you.
Mm-hmm.
So, you've mentioned these four momentous events in your
Yeah.
life which
Mm-hmm.
made you say stop. So stop what? I mean, what is it that you're saying to men regarding
Mm.
self-sabotage?
A few things. I'm starting to be known as somebody who breaks down walls. And number two, I'm redefining what it means to man up. And what I mean by that is knowing your worth and standing your ground. Because with the people pleasing, you may know your value in life, but just not have a lot of self trust and self respect. And because you're afraid of criticism and want people to like you, you back down when somebody challenges you. And you sacrifice your standards. And my standards are authenticity, integrity, and trust, I mean, truth in myself.
Yeah.
And when I got in either corporate environments or in the wrong relationships, my standards were challenged, and I didn't have enough self-identity to really say this is a non-negotiable. These three standards I'm not, and I
Yeah.
allowed them to be negotiated. And that's part of a people pleaser. It's the fear of criticism because of a lack of a strong self-identity. And that happens for a variety of reasons. There's not just one reason why. And
And
then
what
we
does it
yeah,
cost us? What does it cost us that we do that? Because we all do it, right? I mean, I was
absolutely.
writing something the other day, what if we had no fear, right? I'm not talking about the fear which is needed for survival, as in if there's a
Right.
car
No,
coming, get off the
absolutely.
road. But
Yep.
I'm talking about, all these fears that we have
Yeah.
which hold us back.
Mhm.
What does it cost us?
I think the biggest cost, it costs us love, because the human brain cannot have love and fear at the same time. It's not physically possible. So if we're
Oh,
living in fear, we're not going to feel that love. And that's love of a relationship, love of nature, love of self. Most important, love of self. Most
yes.
important relationship we can have, it has to be starting with ourself. If we can't have a good relationship with ourselves and are comfortable being alone, which if you do a dash between the AL and the ONE, it's all one. So you can
Yes.
still be alone, but there's a duality there. You still have your spirituality and getting to know yourself as a person. And once you're comfortable with yourself, then you can be all inclusive with everybody else. And once you know yourself, you can really work to be your best self. It's kind of like the oxygen mask in the
Yeah.
airplane. If we don't have that oxygen on our face first, we can't help
You can't
other
help
people.
anybody, people.
Right. So
Exactly.
if we don't have a good relationship with ourselves, it's very challenging to have a good relationship with others.
So these four events that you had,
Mhm.
were they then so that they then shook you to the impermanence of life or the shortness
Mhm.
of life or how suddenly your life can turn upside down, a divorce or
Uh,
a wake up and jump,
yeah.
and that then you thought life is too
Mhm.
short to not be fully who I am, to not be the one calling the shots?
It wasn't really that. What it was I carried a victim and a blame mentality. So
Right.
I blamed the wife for the divorce. I blamed the boss for firing me. I blame myself for my son's issues, and I blame God for taking my father. There's only so much blame and victim mindset you can have, because again, I couldn't have love for anything with a victim and blame mindset. And then, I started to think, like, I was, 50 years old. What's my legacy? Why the heck am I here? What's my purpose in life? And it was a lot of what you said. Men are taught to don't be who God gave you. God told you to be gave you these masculine qualities, but God also gave us feminine qualities as men. But we're being told, don't be masculine because that's toxic, but also don't cry, don't show your emotion, don't ask for help. You take both of those away, and it's like, what's our role? Who am I? What's my purpose then? Men need purpose just like women do. Men need responsibility just like women do. Men need to feel valued just like women do. We want to be heard just like women do. We are more similar than we are different, men and women. The difference is how we think. So if we think differently and we want to improve our communication so we can improve relationships, let's improve our understanding of each gender's thinking language.
Exactly.
Boom.
And that's why I was delighted to have you here, because
it
is a problem for all of us, right?
It is.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the redefining of man up to me is that men do not have to choose between being strong and being empathic or compassionate. Often, though, men there's fear or a concern that if we're too strong, we're going to be seen as and I fill in a negative word.
Yeah.
Yet, if we're emotional, we're going to be seen as a pushover or a wimp.
Yeah.
Now, we don't have to choose between one or the other. We can have strength with empathy and compassion. And I've actually redefining for myself the distinction between being nice and being kind. All right. The weak Drew, the former Drew, was nice. People pleaser. Nice guys finish last. Being nice all the time is also, the people pleasing piece is manipulative. You're wearing a mask all the time. You're not your authentic self. So people like you with all these different masks on. They don't know the true you. And when you start taking those masks off and start being yourself, I've had so many people say, Drew, that's out of character of you. I'm like, actually, no, it's not. That's me. Well, then who have you been all these years fooling me? It's somewhat subconsciously manipulative. So I shed the mask to be more authentic. I released that blame and victim mentality. I embraced forgiveness for myself for the stuff I did in the past and forgave others. I was able to get rid of regret, because regret fosters blame and victim, right?
Right.
And as far as anxiety of the future, since I can't control it, I took the first 2 chapters of Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, where the first chapter was about desire and the second was about faith. I restored my faith in God. I had a desire to help men become stronger. And so when I eliminated my depression of the past, eliminated my anxiety of the future, it now put me in the present moment. Well, how can I stay in the present moment? I replaced my victim and blame mentality with gratitude, thankful for what I have versus, upset about what I don't have. So that just shifted my mindset from fixed to a growth mindset. And again, from a scarcity to abundance, and take all the negative and it flipped me to the positive. And our brain is a tape recorder. It remembers what we tell it. So I stopped watching every news channel in 2020. I got the chaos, the noise, the garbage, the mind trash. And I eliminated 10 words from my vocabulary. I got rid of should've, could've, would've. I got rid of can't. I got rid of but. I stopped the 4 C's. I stopped comparing. I stopped comparison. I stopped compliance. I stopped complacency. And I forgot the 4th one. But anyway, because I have something I wrote about the 4 C's to dump and the 4 C's to start, living with. But I mean, it was an iterative process. There wasn't a magic pill. It's been 7 years of intense self-awareness and self-reflection. And my goal in life is to reunite men and women, because there's a conscious divide happening in every country to divide the genders. I don't believe women can do it alone better than together with men. And I don't think men can do it alone rather than together. We need to develop strong men in this world and strong women, and we've got to have the strong men and the strong women unite. Then we're going to have strong children. We're going to have strong relationships, strong
and balanced and
communication.
open, authentic,
Yeah,
like you're saying. And we
yeah,
all have feminine and masculine in
we
us. We all
do.
do. Yeah.
So it's a
And it's
matter
not
of
like you said,
balancing. Yeah.
it's not the thing between wuss or,
Mm-mm.
same thing. A woman who's too dominant, she also
Yeah.
gets, called bad words, let's say. And so it also goes both ways, right?
Right.
Okay, so I'm curious, before you are going to be sharing tips, which are fantastic and
Yes.
which are applicable
Yeah.
to all of us. But
Mhm.
how are men reactive?
Much better than you would think. Yeah, and I'll say this too, because of my shift in mindset, I am now attracting more of the men who are into personal development,
Right,
who do want to be better men, and men who have gone through major adversity
right.
and chosen to do something about it. I say in life, three types of men,
Okay.
and this is going to be women too, but I'm going to say because I'm doing the men stuff. So, man number one is the man who has a defining moment right smack right in front of him, doesn't even notice it, doesn't see it, goes about his business, unfilling life, and just, lives to work instead of works to live. Man number two has a little more self awareness, notices something in front of him, wonders what it is. But he says, nah, that's a barrier. That's a barrier. I'm not going near that. I'm staying who I am and continue unfulfilled. And that's the man who's the victim and blame. Life is doing
Right.
it to me. All right.
Yes. Yes.
Man number three is who we all need to be striving to be. And these are the men I've been attracting lately, are the man who sees that defining moment and says, no, that's not a barrier. That's a challenge that I consider
Exactly.
an opportunity to be a better man, to do something different, to have a better life. And we take hold of that defining moment and we take it on and we become a stronger man because of it. And therefore, we see that external circumstance as life happening for me. And
Yes.
that's the difference between that. And, when I said before, the distinction between nice and kind, nice, you get to be a pushover, right? And you don't have a boundary around your self identity. When you're kind, you can be strong, right? Have that boundary around your self identity, non negotiable, and you can still be empathic
Right.
and compassionate. So I'm no longer nice, I'm kind. That's redefining what it means to man up.
Right. That's a wonderful definition. I mean, it's clear. You've taken all of this and you've made a
Mm-hmm.
very clear
Yeah.
process and a very
Mm-hmm.
clear outline. So people come to you, men come to you with all sorts of issues around self-sabotage or not being all of who they can be or struggling to be full stop, as in not knowing who they are.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And the men I coach, we start with having them redefine and redesign their desired identity, who
Right.
they are, really finding their why. What's my purpose? And
Right.
the initial tool is really to be aware of your thoughts, because
Right.
we have 70,000 thoughts a day on average, humans. And I think we remember 1% of that, 1,400 or something like that. It's a very low percentage that we recall. So if we're aware of our thoughts and we start filling our conscious awareness with positivity and all the stuff I talked about, then when that stuff becomes habit, that becomes your subconscious. And then you're going to be, instead of sleepwalking, you're going to be doing the thing that you trained yourself to do, your brain to do. Once the man knows who he is, then we go and we tackle all those self-limiting beliefs that were tied to that old identity, that belief system that was given to us by the time we were 7 to 10 years old. Because most of us, greater than 50% of our belief system of the world and ourselves is created by ages 7 to 10 and 90% by the age of 18. And most of us are living the life that we believe others want us to live.
Yeah.
So once we can eliminate those self-limiting beliefs from the old identity, then we know who we are and we know where we're going. Then it's time to start writing your own story instead of letting others write it for you.
Yeah.
And that's the fun part.
Right. And because I mean, that was to come back to the tips then to share with everyone, that was your
Sure.
first tip, right? It was be aware of your thoughts.
Oh, yeah. In order to find your purpose in life, you must be aware of your thoughts. You have to acknowledge them, dismiss them as necessary or unnecessary, and define and design your desired identity. All our thoughts are in our head. They come from us. They're all an illusion. We create our own reality, right? So we let something in. If it's from the external and someone else is telling us what to do, we have the choice of whether to throw that thought out and think
So how do we become aware of our thoughts? Is it Is it by sort of creating some inner peace that we're actually aware of what we're saying to ourselves, that little voice in our head that talks the whole time?
That's a good question. I look at the distinction in our egos between your rational ego and your emotional ego. All right. So I check my ego every 15 minutes. And what that means is I started doing it with an alarm on my phone. And then now it's just conscious, but I will stop and I'll say, what am I thinking right now?
Thinking, right.
And then I see what I'm thinking. And then I look, well, what was I just working on? There are times I'll be working on a project and then I'll check my ego. What was I? And I look and I'm checking an email. I'm like, wait a second. I was in the middle of a project. I thought I was in flow state. And now I'm looking at email. What just happened? And then I can physically stop the little thing from popping up. And then you start to do stuff to create new habits. But really what gets you from an emotional ego state, because you don't want to make decisions in emotion. We make a lot of bad decisions in emotional. It's the deep breath that takes you from emotional to rational. Once you take it, realize that you're acting on emotion, deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. Usually it's in through the nose I do 7 seconds and out through the nose 8, after the mouth 8. What that does, that puts you right back into a rational ego state. It just does. I call the breathing an interrupter. There's all these kinds of interrupters you could do. When you feel you're in a down thing and you're thinking bad thoughts, you change your environment, you go outside in nature. I created something I called the pause button when I worked in healthcare. When the nurses were had a challenge with a patient, we'll have something in your pocket, something small, that when you're about to go to the next patient, to clear your mind and not take the negative energy from one patient to another, reach in your pocket. It could be, I have a rock from the beach that I have, or you could have a picture of your kid, or just whatever it is, something that makes you happy. It totally just like
That's clever. That's very clever, because we do carry with us, and then over a whole day, we've carried an awful lot of stuff from one person to another.
Absolutely.
That's a very wonderful way.
And what that does, I mean, it's imperative you master your emotions and understand your feelings, respect, trust, and love yourself by removing these self-limiting beliefs that belong to your old identity. I mean, that's how we replace that. Those 3 tips. So the first one is, in order to find your purpose in life, you must be aware of your thoughts, acknowledge them, dismiss them as necessary or unnecessary, define and design your own identity, right? Based on your thoughts. The second thing is, you need to master your emotions and understand your feelings, right? Certain feelings are appropriate in certain situations. Suppressing your emotions is not appropriate, right? And so you need to respect, trust, and love yourself. And how do you do that? You remove those self-limiting beliefs that belong to your old identity you just replaced, and you create new words, positive words for your vocabulary, and get rid of the negative. And then finally, I say lead with purpose. Be intentional and build solid, healthy habits by making sure your decisions you make are aligned with your personal standards, right? If one of your standards is authenticity, don't put the masks on. There are ways to tweak your words in certain situations that don't compromise your integrity or authenticity. They may just change the perception of the individual receiving that information from you. Right. So once your decisions are aligned with your standards, you develop and learn your true purposes. And that's just
the fire for life, right? That's your fuel. That's what gets you out of bed. And right?
Absolutely. Be excited to get up. I get to get up this morning. I don't have to get up.
Exactly.
to get up,
It's all reframing, right? It's really,
it is.
But it is indeed, it all starts with awareness. And you were talking about the 5%, conscious. It's holding on, harnessing those 5% and really asking ourselves, and is this thinking, productive? And is this way of thinking about myself, is it actually based on reality, or is this just some figment that somebody told me exactly when I was 6-year-old or whatsoever? You're always this, you're always that, and then we believe it. But we realize then often in life, especially we're talking about a 50+ audience, we realize when things are not aligned. We realize, you were talking about repressing emotions and all that. I mean, that's where lots of our symptoms come from, right? Our physical symptoms, our body's a bit like, this is not me, get rid of it.
Yeah. Well, I listened to a podcast this morning, and I forget the person's name. I think her first name was Terry. But anyway, she said, when you have a negative thought and you're talking down, always add at the end of it, just like I want it. So if you say, I have no money in my bank account, just like
Just
I
like I
wanted.
want it.
It's like, whoa,
Oh,
wait a second. I don't want
yes.
that. So any negative thought, I love that when I heard that this morning. Any
I do
negative
too. I've just
thought.
written it down.
Yeah, I'm going to give you the source because I like to give credit where credit is due. I'll get it to you.
I'll
You
add
know
it in
who
the
it is.
show notes. I'll
She
add it
was,
in the
yeah,
show notes.
yeah. Point is
Just like
just,
I want
yeah,
it. That
just
really
like I
does. Yeah.
just like I want it. And then you realize yourself, that's not how I want it. And
Yeah.
because what you do is you're giving your brain, that's why I've also gotten rid of the word but,
Yes.
because when you say something nice and then you say but, everybody knows something negative's coming. I
Yeah.
change it to and. And so
Yes.
that's very similar to what she's doing. You say something instead of something not good, and then you put it
And
with
yeah.
something that's like,
Yeah.
and
It
but
doesn't
you,
negate, the second part doesn't negate the first part.
yeah, it's pretty neat.
Fascinating stuff, Drew. So,
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
one last thing because we're approaching the end then. So,
Huh?
how can women help in this? We're talking about men
Mm,
becoming your mission,
yeah,
your mindful man movement.
yeah,
How can we help the men around us, whether our husbands or brothers or
yeah.
sons or nephews?
First is patience, because
Mm,
I'll hear a lot of women tell me my husband doesn't listen to me, and
mm,
you dive deeper as to why. There are times men have a way. We sometimes are able to not think of anything.
mm.
People joke that we have a nothing box, right? So if a woman says, "What are you thinking?" and we say, "Oh, nothing," and women don't believe us because women can't stop thinking. And then what we end up doing is when she keeps not believing us that we're thinking nothing, we make up something, and that's
Yeah,
not
okay. That's
authentic.
not
So,
authentic, right?
so it
Yeah.
truly is. A man could be just sitting there and thinking of
That's
nothing.
already a good thing. I
Yeah.
didn't even know men had a nothing box.
Whenever you ask somebody a question, I think the first three words are the most important. So if a woman wants to understand why a man, I had somebody mention to me like that her husband always comes home. First thing he does, he brings the dog down to the basement and spends about a half an hour and then comes up. And that upset her because she thought that he was ignoring her and that she may have done something or he doesn't want to talk to her. But really what it is when men are stressed and at their wits' end, the last thing they want to do is talk right away. So
Yeah.
going with your dog, dogs are the unconditional love, whatever. A man can decompress
Yeah.
with a dog, and actually by petting an animal, a dog or a cat, it
Yeah.
does do some chemical reaction. So, and then her husband comes up and he's fine, and so he realizes now that that's a good
Right.
thing. Punish him, embrace it, give him permission to do that because
Exactly. And not jump to our conclusions and
yeah,
assumptions based
yeah,
on our model, right?
right.
But if he
So
doesn't come up
that's
straight away, does
yeah,
he love me enough? He loves the dog
yeah,
more, etc. That
yeah,
those are very, very, I mean, Drew, this has been so full of content. So I actually hope you'll be back at some point because
absolutely.
we should have an episode about how women can be there for men as well. I think this was great. Self-sabotage, and you've given a huge
Yeah.
wealth of tips. So I encourage all
Mhm.
of you to, if you haven't written them down, listen again.
Yeah,
And I embrace you for being on this mission with the idea of harmony, of women and men being at their best in order
absolutely.
to create this world that we all want for ourselves, for our children and future
Yeah,
generations, etc. And that starts
absolutely.
with also understanding each other and also
Hmm.
understanding ourselves, as you've just said.
Absolutely,
It's time that we
absolutely.
all get into that. Drew, thank you very, very much. I will make sure to put in the show notes all the information about your movement and your podcast for people
Hmm.
who would like to share it with their male in their environment, let's say. And I wish you and your mission all the very best. And do please come back.
I'd love to. Maybe mention one more thing to
Yes,
your
please do.
audience. Choose to write your own story instead of letting others write it for you.
Very true. Very
Yeah,
true. And if not now, when, right? This is the perfect
exactly.
time to do
Now is
it.
the best time to
That was
do
the
it.
best time to do it.
Yep.
Thank
Yeah.
you very, very, very
It's
much.
my pleasure. My
Bye,
pleasure.
everyone.
Thanks for
Bye.
having me. Bye.